The Endarian galaxy was a place of wonder and danger. Stars burned like bright gems, and planets of all sizes and colors floated silently in the darkness. Among these stars, a powerful empire ruled a species known as the Vrillians. They were tall, with smooth, iridescent skin that reflected the light of their home star, and eyes that shimmered like polished crystals. The Vrillians were proud and confident, a race that had never faced a real challenge in the galaxy. Their fleets were enormous, their technology unmatched, and their ambition limitless. On the edge of Vrillian-controlled space, a small moon orbited a pale blue planet. The moon was barren, with jagged rocks and thin air, and it seemed almost unimportant. Yet, it was here that the first signs of trouble appeared. On a radar screen aboard the Vrillian royal flagship, the sensors detected something unusual. A small cluster of ships, moving slowly and deliberately, appeared near the moon's surface. Prince Ralith, the youngest member of the Vrillian royal family, leaned over the viewing console, his crystal-like eyes narrowing. "What is that?" he asked. His voice carried both curiosity and confidence. He had grown up believing that anything small or weak was beneath notice. Admiral Velen, the commander of the fleet, glanced at the readings and then back at the prince. "It appears to be a human scout unit," he said. His tone was calm, but a flicker of amusement passed through his expression. "They are weak. They have only a few ships, likely fragile and poorly armed. We could destroy them easily." Ralith smiled. "So why do we hesitate? Send the attack drones. Let us make a show of power." Within moments, the fleet sprang to life. Vrillian ships, sleek and polished, surged forward like silver arrows. Cannons hummed with energy, and shields activated in rhythmic pulses. The humans, small and distant on the radar, were barely visible like tiny insects on a giant's path. Far below, the human scout unit moved quietly across the moon's surface. Captain Mira Lynn stood on the bridge of the lead ship, observing the approaching Vrillians. Her crew was small but disciplined. Each member moved with precision, their eyes scanning every readout. Mira's voice was calm, but firm. "We knew this might happen. Stay alert. Don't panic. Remember, they underestimate us. That is our advantage." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Karen Shaw, frowned as he watched the massive ships on the main screen. "Captain, they outnumber us by 10 to 1. Are we really ready for this?" Mira's eyes did not leave the radar. "Numbers don't matter. Strategy matters. Precision matters. Humans have survived worse than this. Karen, trust the plan." As the Vrillian fleet approached, their weapons began to charge. Energy beams hummed in the vacuum of space, ready to blast anything that came near. The Vrillian crews were confident, joking among themselves. "This will be over in minutes," said one young officer. Another laughed. "I hope they at least put up a good fight." "But I doubt it." Then the humans made their move. Small ships darted from cover behind rocky outcrops on the moon, invisible until the last moment. From the Vrillian perspective, it looked like sudden lightning strikes, small but precise. Energy beams lanced out, targeting weak points in the Vrillian fleet. One cruiser exploded silently, drifting in the void like a shattered jewel. The shock was immediate. Prince Ralith's eyes widened. What is happening?" he demanded. "How can this be? They are only scouts. They cannot." Admiral Valen's fingers danced over his console, trying to make sense of the reports. "Impossible. Their tactics are adaptive. They are predicting our maneuvers. Adjust shields, reinforce the rear fleet." But it was too late. Another Vrillian ship, larger and more powerful than the first, was destroyed. Energy readings showed a sudden and precise attack pattern. It was as if the humans could see the Vrillian strategies before they even happened. Panic began to spread through the fleet. Mira watched calmly as the human small ships moved in perfect coordination. "Focus on the weak points," she ordered. "Keep the drones distracted. Don't let them flank us." On the Vrillian flagship, the royal family looked on in disbelief. They had ruled with absolute certainty for generations. No one had ever dared to challenge them so directly, especially not humans. "This is an insult," Ralith said, his voice trembling slightly. "They are only scouts, only a few ships. How can they?" He stopped mid-sentence as the flagship shook violently. Alarms screamed, and crew members scrambled. A beam struck the hull, ripping through armor that had never failed before. The royal family clung to the viewing platform, unable to believe the destruction. Admiral Valen's voice was tight with frustration. "Prince, they are human. They are using tactics we did not anticipate. Their ships are smaller, but their strategy is precise. We cannot fight them directly without severe losses." Ralph's pride burned like fire, but fear began to creep in. He had grown up believing that humans were weak, predictable, and easy to crush. Yet here they were, tiny and seemingly fragile, dismantling his fleet piece by piece. "Retreat!" Valen shouted. "Fall back! Regroup!" The order was almost humiliating for the Vrillian royals, who had never retreated in centuries. The fleet pulled back in disarray, leaving behind the smoking remains of ships that had once symbolized their power. Meanwhile, Mira's team remained calm. They had anticipated this response. "Good work, everyone," she said quietly. "We inflicted maximum damage without exposing ourselves. Now, let's disappear before they can reorganize." The humans activated their stealth drives, slipping silently behind the moon's surface. From a distance, the Vrillians could barely see the faint shimmer of their movement. The royals watched helplessly, their pride shattered. They had thought this would be a routine demonstration of power. Instead, it had become a lesson in humility. On the flagship bridge, Ralph sank into a seat, stunned. We only fought a human scout unit," he whispered, the words tasting bitter. The reality was clear. Humans were not weak. They were clever, unpredictable, and far more dangerous than anyone had believed. Admiral Valen stood beside him, silent. For the first time in his life, he had no words of reassurance. The humans had not just survived, they had dominated, using tactics the Vrillians could not anticipate. As the fleet limped back toward the safety of Vrillian space, the royal family gathered in private. They spoke in hushed tones, their faces pale with shock and confusion. "We underestimated them," Ralph said finally. "We must understand them. We must. Prepare." Far away, Captain Maryland's ships drifted through the stars, unnoticed and unharmed. The scout mission had been a success. They had proven that humans could survive against impossible odds, and more importantly, they had sent a clear message to the galaxy: never underestimate humanity. And in the shadows of space, the Vrillians learned a truth that would haunt them for years. Even the smallest human unit could shatter pride, strategy, and expectation in ways no one had imagined. The encounter was over, but the war of respect, fear, and curiosity had only just begun. The Vrillian royal fleet returned to their home space station, a massive structure of polished metal and crystal that gleamed against the backdrop of stars. The silence aboard the flagship was heavy. Crew members moved with quiet urgency, repairing damaged systems, while the royal family gathered in the Grand Council chamber. The usual pride and confidence that had filled the room was replaced by tension, disbelief, and unease. Prince Ralph paced slowly, his long, slender legs carrying him back and forth. "I still cannot believe it," he said, voice tight. "We faced only a human scout unit, only a handful of ships, and yet they destroyed our fleet. How is this possible?" Admiral Valen, standing near the holographic display of the battle, shook his head. "They were prepared. Their ships were small, but their tactics were precise. Their attacks were coordinated, and their timing was perfect. They predicted our moves before we even made them." Ralph stopped pacing and looked at the Admiral. "But our humans are primitive. Their technology cannot match ours. Their numbers are insignificant. This should have been easy." Valen's expression was grim. "That is exactly why they succeeded. We expected weakness, hesitation, and mistakes. Humans are not weak. They are unpredictable. They do not follow the rules we understand. They think differently. They adapt quickly. That is what makes them dangerous." The Royal Council fell into silence. Never in the history of the Vrillian Empire had anyone admitted defeat, especially not against what they considered a primitive species. Reports were read aloud. Small human ships had disabled shields, destroyed cruisers, and even forced some brilliant officers to retreat in confusion. The humans had used terrain, timing, and clever tricks to survive and win. Ralph clenched his hands, trying to control his frustration. This is humiliating. The galaxy will hear of this. Our empire will appear weak, and all because of a few humans. One of the senior counselors, a wise Vrillian named Lysara, spoke carefully. Prince, we must accept reality. These humans are different. They do not rely on strength alone. They rely on intelligence, planning, and courage. To fight them as we would another empire would be foolish. The prince shook his head. I refuse to believe it. They are only scouts. Only a small team. There must be a mistake. Valen's tone was sharper now. No mistake. Every report confirms it. Their success was not luck. It was skill. They used strategy, not size, to dominate us. Meanwhile, far from the brilliant space, Captain Mirreland's team continued their mission. The human scout ships moved quietly among the stars, repairing minor damages and gathering data from their encounter. Inside the bridge of her lead ship, Mira studied the Vrillian fleet patterns, analyzing weaknesses and strengths. Lieutenant Karen Shaw looked at her, concern etched on his face. Captain, do you think they will come after us? They were huge, and they clearly underestimated us before. Now they know we are capable. Mira nodded slowly. They may pursue us, yes, but we are prepared. They are strong, but they are predictable in ways we can use. Remember, Karen, humans survive because we adapt. We think ahead, we plan, and we act decisively. That is how we survive today, and that is how we will survive tomorrow if needed. In the Vrillian capital, the royal family convened an emergency session. High-ranking officials debated their next move. Some demanded immediate retaliation, a show of power to erase the humiliation. Others, like Lysara, argued for caution. The humans had shown intelligence and resourcefulness, and attacking recklessly could lead to further losses. Prince Ralph, frustrated and restless, finally stood. We cannot let this go. If we do nothing, the galaxy will lose respect for us. We must strike back, and we must do it decisively. Lysara stepped forward. Prince, attacking blindly is dangerous. We do not fully understand the humans. They are clever, they think differently, and they do not fear what we fear. A direct assault could cost us more than we have already lost. We must study them first. The prince's face hardened. Study? We have already faced them and barely survived. We cannot wait while they grow stronger. I will command a fleet to hunt them down. I will show the galaxy that Vrillians are not to be underestimated. Admiral Valen remained silent, knowing the consequences could be disastrous. He had served the royal family faithfully, but he also understood the danger of underestimating an opponent that had just shattered centuries of arrogance back in the humans' hidden position. Mira reviewed the situation with her officers. They will come for us, she said, and when they do, we must be ready. They are learning, and so are we. But remember this, humans survive because we never accept limits. They see us as small, weak, and insignificant. That is our advantage. They cannot predict what we are truly capable of. The crew nodded, their confidence quiet but strong. Despite the odds, they had proven their abilities, and they trusted in one another completely. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Vrillians began to mobilize. Entire fleets were assembled, engines humming, weapons charging, and shields glowing. Yet even as they prepared for retaliation, a sense of unease lingered. No Vrillian had ever faced a foe like this. No strategy had ever failed so completely. And the more they studied human behavior, the more unpredictable it seemed. Prince Ralph met with Admiral Valen in private. Tell me what we know about them, he demanded. Tell me their weaknesses. Valen hesitated. That is the problem, Your Highness. Humans do not have predictable weaknesses in the way other species do. They are small, yes, but their minds are fast and flexible. They improvise, adapt, and innovate. They will not act like we expect them to act. They survive because they think differently. Ralph's face showed frustration. Then how do we fight them? How do we win? Valen's eyes were steady. We do not fight them like we fight others. We observe. We prepare. And above all, we respect their capabilities. If we rush, we will lose more than before. Humans are dangerous because they are clever. They are resourceful. And they are patient. The prince clenched his fists, but he could not deny the truth. The humans were not just a nuisance. They were a challenge unlike any other. And deep down, he felt the first spark of fear he had ever known. Far away, Mira's crew made plans to continue their scouting mission. They knew that the humans' actions had left a mark on the galaxy. Even the mighty Vrillians had begun to recognize that humans were not to be underestimated. And this knowledge gave them an advantage, the knowledge that survival depended not on size or strength, but on courage, intelligence, and unity. The human ships drifted silently through the void, almost invisible against the stars. Each crew member worked in quiet harmony, repairing, analyzing, and preparing for the next challenge. Mira knew the Vrillians would strike again, perhaps with greater force. But she also knew that humans had a way of turning impossible situations into victories. In the heart of the Vrillian Empire, the Royal Council continued to debate. Voices rose and fell. Plans were suggested and rejected. And the shadow of fear and respect for humans grew with every passing hour. The galaxy had changed in a single encounter, and the Vrillians could no longer see themselves as untouchable rulers. Prince Ralph stared out of the large viewing window, watching the stars and distant planets. He could no longer dismiss the humans as weak or insignificant. They had shown intelligence, courage, and ingenuity, qualities that even the mighty Vrillians had to admire and fear for the first time. The prince understood a difficult truth. The humans were not just survivors. They were a force that had shaken an empire built on power, pride, and centuries of dominance. And as the Vrillians planned their next move, far away, the humans prepared quietly. They had no desire for unnecessary war, only to survive, explore, and prove that even the smallest scout unit could leave a mark on the galaxy. The galaxy was watching, and in this watchful silence, one thing had become certain. Humanity was far stronger than anyone had imagined, and the Vrillians were only beginning to understand what it meant to face them. The Vrillian Royal Council was in turmoil. The palace, a massive structure of crystal and steel, shimmered under the light of 3 suns. But within its walls, tension weighed heavier than any force field. Prince Ralph paced in his private chambers, frustration written across his crystalline features. The humans had humiliated them, outsmarting an entire fleet with only a handful of ships. And now, the Royal Council demanded action. "We cannot wait," Ralph said, his voice tight with anger. "They think they can challenge us and escape. We must strike back. Send the fleet. Crush them completely." Admiral Velen, standing beside him, spoke cautiously. "Your Highness, striking without preparation could be dangerous. They are small, but they are cunning. They will anticipate a direct attack." Ralph's eyes flashed. "Then we will attack indirectly. Use all our resources. Surround them, cut off escape routes, and leave no chance for evasion. I want their ships destroyed. I want their arrogance punished." Valen hesitated. He had served the royal family faithfully for decades, but he had learned a difficult truth. Humans were not predictable. They adapted. They improvised. And now, with the entire Vrillian Empire focused on retaliation, the humans would face the greatest challenge of their lives. Far from the Vrillian capital, Captain Miralin's fleet remained in hiding, their small ships blending into the asteroid fields near the border of Vrillian space. Her crew worked in silent efficiency, repairing systems damaged in the previous encounter, scanning for threats, and analyzing data captured from the Vrillian fleet. Lieutenant Karen Shaw looked at the tactical display. "Captain, they are preparing something. Sensors show multiple fleets mobilizing near our sector. They are sending a massive force." Mira studied the readings carefully. "Yes, they are angry, but anger makes them predictable. They rely on strength and intimidation, and they underestimate strategy. That is their weakness." Karen frowned. "But the numbers are overwhelming. Hundreds of ships, all larger and more powerful than ours. How can we survive?" Mira leaned forward, her eyes calm and sharp. by using what humans always use: intelligence, planning, and speed. We do not need to outgun them. We need to outthink them. We will use the environment, create decoys, and strike where they least expect. That is how humans survive. Back in the Vrillian Palace, the Council finalized their plan. Multiple fleets were dispatched, each with specific objectives: one to block escape routes, another to attack directly, and a third to cut off supply lines. The plan was meticulous, built on centuries of experience. Yet, it overlooked one critical factor: the humans' ingenuity. Ralph stood on the observation balcony, watching the deployment. "They will not escape this time," he said with certainty. "We have the advantage. They are few, we are many. Victory will be ours." Valen said nothing. He knew the prince's confidence was misplaced, but he also knew that warning him now would be futile. The fleets moved like silver waves across the stars, ready to crush any resistance. Meanwhile, the human fleet moved quietly among asteroids, using the natural terrain for cover. Small sensors were deployed, disguised as floating debris, giving the humans information about the incoming Vrillian fleets. Mira's team worked in harmony, each crew member executing their role perfectly. "Our advantage is the environment," Mira said. "We know these asteroid fields. They do not. They will follow standard attack patterns. That is when we strike." Karen nodded. "And the decoys? We will use drones," Mira explained. "They will appear as additional ships, drawing attention while our main ships move unseen. The Vrillians will waste resources on what they think is a fleet, while we prepare our counterattack." As the first Vrillian fleet approached the asteroid field, their sensors detected unusual activity. Energy signatures flickered in ways they could not fully interpret. Crew members grew uneasy. "Captain," one officer said, "there are anomalies in the asteroid field. Sensors show small ships moving too fast to track." Prince Ralph's flagship advanced confidently. "Do not be distracted," he ordered. "Prepare for the main attack. Destroy whatever is in our path." Then the humans struck. Drones emerged from the asteroid shadows, moving like swarms of fireflies. The Vrillians fired at them, but the energy beams passed through empty space, hitting nothing. Meanwhile, the human scout ships slipped behind the fleet, using narrow gaps between asteroids to maneuver unseen. "Target their weak points," Mira ordered. "Engage now." Small energy pulses hit the Vrillian ships. Not enough to destroy them outright, but enough to disable shields and engines. Confusion spread rapidly through the fleet. Ships collided with asteroids, and crews struggled to maintain formation. The humans had created chaos without engaging in direct combat. On the flagship, Prince Ralph could hardly believe what he saw. How are they doing this? They are so small. They should be visible." Valen's voice was quiet, almost fearful. "They are using the environment. They are using strategy. This is not luck, it is planning, intelligence, and coordination. They adapt faster than we can anticipate." The humans continued their attack with precision. Each ship had a role. Some acted as decoys, drawing fire and attention. Others moved to disrupt engines and communications. And still others focused on analyzing the Vrillian movements, learning their patterns in real time. The chaos grew. A cruiser fired blindly into the asteroid field, missing every target. Another collided with a hidden asteroid, leaving debris drifting in the void. The Vrillians, trained for combat and confident in their superiority, were now struggling to respond to a foe that acted unpredictably. Mira watched calmly as the plan unfolded perfectly. "Focus on control," she instructed. "Do not get carried away with destruction. We need precision. Disable their capabilities, but do not waste resources on unnecessary attacks." Lieutenant Karen's eyes widened as he observed the results. "Captain, they are panicking. They cannot coordinate. Our decoys worked perfectly." "Yes," Mira said quietly. "Humans always survive because we create opportunities where none exist. The Vrillians rely on strength. They cannot comprehend tactics that come from thinking outside the norm." In the Vrillian flagship, Prince Ralph gritted his teeth. "This cannot be happening. We have the fleet. We have the advantage. Why are they able to fight us so effectively?" Valen shook his head. "Because they are humans. They are clever, adaptable, and fearless. And we underestimated them. That is why we are losing. Ralph's pride burned, but he could not deny the facts. The humans, small and fragile-looking, were orchestrating a complex operation that even the mightiest Vrillian fleet could not counter directly. As the battle continued, more Vrillian ships were disabled or forced to retreat. The humans avoided direct confrontation, striking only when it maximized disruption. By the time the Vrillians realized the scale of the situation, the humans had already created a path for their safe retreat. Mira's team slipped away through hidden channels in the asteroid field, leaving behind a trail of confusion and frustration. The Vrillians regrouped, battered but alive, struggling to comprehend what had just happened. Prince Ralph stood in silence, staring at the stars. "We only fought a scout unit," he whispered, almost in disbelief. "Only a few ships. And yet they did this to us." Valen placed a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, Your Highness. And now we know. We cannot fight them as we fight others. They are different, clever, unpredictable, and they survive because of it." The prince's mind raced. He had faced defeat before, but never humiliation like this. The humans had shown something that no Vrillian fleet had ever faced: intelligence, unity, and courage that could turn even the smallest unit into a formidable force far away. Captain Mirrorland's ships regrouped. The crew worked quietly, repairing minor damages and preparing for the next mission. They had won this encounter not by strength, but by strategy, and they knew that the galaxy had now taken notice of humans. This is only the beginning. Mira said to her crew, "They will come again, and when they do, we will be ready. Humans survive because we adapt, and today, we have proven it once more." The humans drifted through the asteroid field, small, quiet, and almost invisible. Yet their impact had shaken an empire. The Vrillians had learned a lesson they would not forget. Even a few humans, when clever and united, could challenge the mightiest fleets in the galaxy. And as the stars shimmered around them, both sides understood a difficult truth. The galaxy had changed. Humans were no longer weak. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the Vrillians would never again underestimate them. The Vrillian Empire was in full alert. Across their space stations and fleets, orders were issued at lightning speed. Every ship prepared for battle. Sensors scanned every inch of space for human activity, but the humans were elusive. Small, fast, and clever. They had vanished into the asteroid fields near the border of Vrillian space. Prince Ralph, still seething from previous defeats, paced the grand observation hall of his flagship. "We cannot allow this to continue," he said. His crystalline eyes reflected the stars outside, but his mind was clouded with frustration. "They are small, yet they humiliate us. We must find them and destroy them completely." Admiral Valen remained calm, though his jaw tightened. "Your Highness, they are using the asteroid field to their advantage. A direct attack will not work. They move unpredictably, and they strike precisely. If we rush, we risk further losses." Ralph slammed his hand against the console. "Then give me another strategy. I will not let a few humans dictate the terms of war to the Vrillians." Valen bowed his head slightly. "There's a strategy, Your Highness, but it requires patience. We must force them into a position where we control the environment. Then we can corner them, but we cannot underestimate their ingenuity." Meanwhile, Captain Mirrorland's team was already several light minutes from the last engagement. Her fleet moved silently, using the asteroid field for cover. The humans repaired minor damages from the last encounter and analyzed the data they had collected. Lieutenant Karen Shaw leaned over the tactical display. "Captain, I don't understand. They are mobilizing massive fleets, hundreds of ships. If they find us, we could be destroyed." Mira's expression was calm, almost serene. "They will find us eventually," she said. "But they will only succeed if we make mistakes. Humans survive because we think faster, adapt faster, and act decisively. The moment we are cleverer than they expect, we control the battle." Karen shook his head. "And if they anticipate our tactics?" Mira smiled faintly. "Then we adapt again. Humans are not predictable to anyone, not even the most powerful fleets. That is our strength." The Vrillians advanced cautiously. They're massive ships moving in formation through the asteroid belt. Sensors scan continuously, but every probe seemed to meet interference or disappear into shadows. Panic began to creep among the junior officers. Ships collided with floating debris, and communications faltered under constant interference. Prince Ralph's patience was wearing thin. How can they evade us so easily? We have entire fleets, yet they remain invisible. Valen's voice was firm. They do not rely on size or numbers, Your Highness. They rely on strategy, and that strategy is working against us. We must remain calm and coordinate carefully, or the asteroid field will become a trap for us instead of them. The humans, in the meantime, began their next phase. They had anticipated the Varillians' advance and set a carefully calculated ambush. Small drones, designed to appear as ships, were deployed in patterns that suggested larger movements. The Varillians, seeing what looked like multiple human fleets, became distracted. Mira's main ships moved silently behind cover, exploiting gaps in the asteroid field. Remember, she instructed her crew, precision is more important than destruction. Disable their key systems, confuse their formations, and strike where it hurts most. Lieutenant Karen nodded. Understood. Weapons ready, shields active. All systems green. At that moment, the Varillian flagship activated its sensors. Captain, multiple contacts detected. One officer shouted. They are everywhere. There must be hundreds. Prince Ralph's eyes widened. Impossible. They cannot have so many ships. Valen intervened calmly. No, Your Highness. They do not. These are decoys, illusions. They are clever, but we must not panic. Focus on reality, not what they want us to see. As the fleets engaged, the humans executed the ambush flawlessly. Small, precise strikes targeted engines, shields, and communications. Varillian ships that had once seemed invincible were suddenly crippled. The chaos spread quickly. Through their formations, a cruiser attempted to fire at one of the human decoys but missed entirely. Another ship collided with a floating asteroid, its hull cracking under pressure. The Varillians struggled to respond, their confidence eroding with each loss. Prince Ralph's face was pale. How can such a small group cause so much damage? They are only humans, he shouted, disbelief evident in his voice. Valen stepped closer. Your Highness, they are not small in skill. Their courage, strategy, and teamwork allowed them to overcome size and firepower. We have underestimated them, and it has cost us. The turning point came when the humans exploited the Varillians' overconfidence. Using narrow channels between asteroids, they bypassed the main fleet entirely and targeted the flagship directly. Energy pulses struck weak points in the hull, causing alarms to scream across the ship. The royal family clung to viewing platforms, stunned by the effectiveness of what they had once considered a minor threat. Prince Ralph's hand shook as he gripped the console. No, this cannot be happening. We are the Varillians. No one has ever defeated us like this. Valen's voice was steady. Perhaps, Your Highness, they have. And perhaps it is time to learn from this. They are humans. They survive because they adapt, innovate, and cooperate. They fight differently than we do. That is their advantage. The Varillian fleet was in disarray. Several ships were disabled, and the remaining vessels struggled to maintain formation. Crew members were exhausted, morale was low, and the once proud fleets now appeared vulnerable. Meanwhile, the humans executed a precise retreat. Their ambush had achieved its goal. The Varillians had been weakened, their confidence shattered, and their strategy revealed as flawed. Miralin's crew moved quietly through the asteroid field, leaving behind the chaos they had carefully orchestrated. On the Varillian flagship, the royal family convened in private. Silence filled the room, broken only by the soft hum of damaged systems. Prince Ralph stared at the holographic display of their losses. We only fought a human scout unit, he whispered. The words were bitter, heavy with disbelief. Valen nodded slowly. Yes, Your Highness. And now we know the truth. Humans are not weak. They are clever, adaptable, and patient. They survive where others fail, and we cannot underestimate them again. The prince's pride burned, but he understood a difficult truth. Humans had shown something no Vrillian fleet had ever faced: intelligence combined with courage, precision, and unity. They had turned what should have been a minor skirmish into a demonstration of human ingenuity and resilience. Far away, Mira's ships regrouped silently. Crew members repaired minor damage, exchanged reports, and prepared for the next challenge. They had succeeded without engaging in a full-scale battle, proving that strategy and cleverness often outweighed raw power. This is a lesson for the galaxy. Mira said quietly, "Humans survive because we think differently, act boldly, and trust one another. The Vrillians will not forget this, and neither will we." In the aftermath, both sides understood a fundamental shift had occurred. The Vrillians had experienced their first real defeat, not through weakness, but through ingenuity. The humans, small and seemingly fragile, had shown that adaptability, strategy, and courage could overcome even the mightiest fleet. And in the silent void of space, a new respect and a new fear was born. The Vrillians now knew that humans were not to be dismissed as insignificant. They were a force, a species that could challenge even the most powerful empires in ways no one had imagined. Prince Ralph stared out at the stars, his mind heavy with realization. The humans had survived, adapted, and outsmarted an entire fleet. He could no longer see them as weak or trivial. They had proven themselves in ways that even centuries of Vrillian dominance could not ignore. The turning point had come. The humans had demonstrated that intelligence, courage, and unity could overcome even overwhelming odds. And as both sides prepared for the future, one truth was clear: the galaxy had changed, and humans were now a power to be reckoned with. The Vrillian Empire was quiet, but not peaceful. Across the Royal Space Station, advisors, generals, and fleet commanders spoke in hushed tones. Every word carried tension. Every decision carried the weight of the recent defeats. The Vrillians had learned a bitter truth: humans were not weak, not predictable, and not a species to dismiss. Prince Ralph stood at the observation balcony of his flagship, staring at the stars. His usually confident stance was tense. He had grown up believing that the galaxy could be shaped by power and numbers alone. But humans had proven otherwise. Their tiny scout unit had done what no fleet in Vrillian history had ever accomplished. They had outsmarted a royal armada. "Your Highness," Admiral Valen said quietly. Joining him, "We cannot treat them as we would any other opponent. They are unique. We have learned that brute force is ineffective against them. And yet, I believe we can learn from this. If we adapt, we may coexist, or at least avoid further losses." Ralph turned to face him, eyes sharp. "Learn from them? You mean admit that we were wrong?" Valen nodded. "Yes, Your Highness. They fight differently, think differently, and survive where others fail. If we underestimate them again, we will suffer even more. Respect is the only path forward now." The prince remained silent for a long moment, absorbing the weight of those words. Pride was difficult to set aside, but Ralph could feel the truth pressing against him. Humans were a force in the galaxy, and the Vrillians could no longer ignore that reality. Far from the Vrillian capital, Captain Miralin's scout unit drifted silently through the outer asteroid fields. The humans had repaired minor damages from their previous encounters, and the crew moved efficiently, their actions calm and precise. Lieutenant Karen Shaw glanced at the display screen. "Captain, I don't think they understand us fully yet. They are cautious, hesitant, but curious." "I can feel it," Mira nodded. "Yes, Karen, humans leave a mark, even in defeat or invisibility. The Vrillians will think carefully before they underestimate us again. That hesitation is our advantage. The human ships move as one unit, every decision deliberate, every maneuver calculated. They were small in size, yet immense in capability. This was the essence of humanity, intelligence, courage, and unity that allowed them to thrive in even the most dangerous conditions. Meanwhile, the Vrillian Council continued its deliberations. The royal family and fleet commanders debated endlessly on how to handle this new reality. Some insisted on retaliation, to strike humans down before they could expand. Others, more cautious, argued that humans had proven themselves to be strategic thinkers. Direct confrontation could be disastrous. Lysara, the senior counselor, addressed the assembly. "We have faced them directly and failed. The humans survive using strategy, patience, and cleverness. They do not fear us. They are resilient. If we seek conflict, we must understand them fully, or we will suffer again." A younger general scoffed. "We outnumber them. Hundreds of ships against a small scout unit. We should destroy them before they grow stronger." Ralph, who had been silent, finally spoke. "No, they are not just a small unit. They are intelligent, adaptable, and capable. If we attack recklessly, we will only invite disaster. Humans are formidable, and we must respect that." Silence fell in the council chamber. For the first time, centuries of pride and arrogance gave way to caution and humility. The Vrillians had encountered a species that forced them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about power and dominance. Far away, the humans observed the faint signals of the Vrillian fleet as it returned to home space. They had left no unnecessary traces, only subtle disruptions in communication and navigation systems. From a distance, it appeared as though the Vrillians had faced chaos, yet the humans had remained calm, careful, and precise. Lieutenant Karen shook his head in disbelief. "It still amazes me. How can just a few humans change the behavior of an entire empire?" Mira smiled faintly. "Because humans survive where others fail. We are not predictable, and we are not limited by assumptions. Today, we showed them that. Tomorrow, we may face more challenges, but we will survive because we think, adapt, and work together." Back on the Vrillian flagship, Prince Ralph reflected on the lessons learned. The humans had proven that survival did not depend solely on size, firepower, or numbers. Intelligence, adaptability, and teamwork could turn even a small force into a formidable power. And for the first time, Ralph felt a sense of cautious respect for a species he had once dismissed. Valen approached him quietly. "Your Highness, the humans have left a lasting impression. We must decide how to proceed. We can continue aggression, or we can seek understanding. Either path will define our empire's future." Ralph gazed out at the stars, lost in thought. "We will not strike blindly," he said finally. "We will observe, learn, and prepare. Humans are not enemies we can defeat with arrogance alone. They are something else entirely. And now we must respect that." The Vrillian fleet returned to home space in silence, carrying not just damaged ships, but a new understanding of the galaxy and their place within it. The humans had shown that a small, clever, and coordinated force could challenge even the mightiest empire. Pride had been humbled, and respect had been born. Captain Miralin's fleet continued its quiet journey through the stars. The crew moved efficiently, each member performing their duties with precision. They had survived encounters with one of the galaxy's most powerful species, and they had done so without unnecessary risk or chaos. Mira spoke to her team. "We leave no trace, make no unnecessary enemies, and continue our mission. Today we proved something important. Humans can face anything and survive. That is our legacy." Karen nodded. "They will not forget us." "No," Mira said. "And that is enough. Let them learn caution. Let them learn respect. Humans will continue to explore, to survive, and to prove that even a small unit can make a difference across the galaxy." The Vrillians studied, planned, and learned. The royal family, once confident in their absolute superiority, now understood that the humans had changed the rules. They had demonstrated ingenuity, patience, and courage. They had survived, adapted, and outsmarted forces far greater than themselves. Prince Ralph walked along the balcony of the flagship one last time. Before retiring to private chambers, he gazed at the stars, contemplating the humans' resilience. "They are small," he whispered, "but they are strong, not in power, but in mind and spirit. And that is something we must never forget." The humans drifted through the stars, quiet, unnoticed, yet leaving a ripple across the galaxy. The Vrillians would remember this encounter, not with hatred, but with cautious respect. And in that respect lay the true victory of humanity, not destruction, not conquest, but recognition, acknowledgement, and admiration. For the humans, the galaxy was vast, full of challenges and wonders. They would continue to explore, to adapt, and to survive. And wherever they went, they left a clear message: never underestimate humanity. For even the smallest unit could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast the mightiest foes. The story of the scout unit would be told for generations. Among humans and aliens alike, the Vrillians would speak of it quietly, a lesson in humility, strategy, and the unpredictable brilliance of humanity. And the humans would continue, small, clever, and unstoppable. A force that could change the galaxies simply by being themselves, in the silence of space. A new balance had emerged. Pride had met intelligence, arrogance had met strategy, and power had met respect. The Vrillians learned humility. The humans learned confidence. And the galaxy, watching silently, had changed forever. Captain Marilyn gazed at the stars, her crew around her, and whispered softly, "We are humans. We survive, we endure, and we will never be underestimated." Far away, Prince Ralph watched the same stars, feeling a mixture of awe, fear, and respect. Humanity had proven itself, not through brute force, but through courage, intelligence, and unity. And the Vrillians would never forget it. The scout unit had completed its mission. Not just survival, but victory in a form deeper than battle. Victory in respect, understanding, and the acknowledgement that humans were a species unlike any other. And so, the galaxy moved forward, with a new truth shining brighter than any star. Humanity, small but brilliant, had changed the course of history forever.